Welcome to Sincerely Me, a podcast about self-discovery and inner work so you can cultivate a deeper relationship to yourself and show up more fully in your work and life. My name is Tallia and I'm honored to be your host. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. This week, we are sharing a conversation with Claire Siegel, who is one of the most real and honest women I have ever met. She is the founder of Nutritional Freedom and offers a variety of services in nutritional coaching. But what she's really on a mission to do is support women on their journey to self-love and confidence through a joyful approach to health. So we talk about a lot in this episode about feeling at home and safe in your body. We talk about the importance of committing or recommitting to yourself and cultivating self-acceptance at every single part of your journey. We talk about willpower, accountability, having a clear vision, and we hope that you leave feeling inspired to take some kind of aligned action for yourself in your own life. One of my favorite quotes from this episode was, "Self-care, self-respect, and self-acceptance of wherever you are today is an extremely powerful launchpad to help you get to wherever it is that you want to go." So I cannot wait for you all to hear this episode. An important announcement coming from my end before I share the conversation with you is that Sincerely Me is officially on Instagram, on its own Instagram page at Sincerely Me Podcast. This means that there is a whole Instagram account dedicated to just the podcast where you'll see captions, stories, posts dedicated to all the episodes that we are continuing to release, also that we have released. So every episode up until now has its own post already in the feed with captions, and you can go ahead and say hello to us there. So give us a follow, shoot us a DM, share some love. We are on social to be able to engage more with you all, with this community of listeners, and cannot wait to see you there. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Claire Siegel. Thank you so much for joining me, Claire. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast.
I am so excited to be here.
Yay! Okay, so I want you to start very briefly by sharing a bit more about what exactly it is you do before I run through my infinite number of questions to ask you.
Yes, that sounds good. So I am a registered dietitian and the founder of Nutritional Freedom. So we run online nutrition coaching and mindset programs. And then we also have a membership program for our foundations program graduates.
Amazing. Okay. So as you all know, the topic that Claire and I have decided to speak about today is feeling at home in your body. And before her and I pressed record, I asked Claire, what is one take home, what is the take home message you want the people listening to take with them? What is the one line, the one message that you, if nothing else was taken from this conversation, this would be the thing? And she shared an answer with me. And I kind of stopped and I was like, all right, we're going to have to do this again. And I'm going to have to hit record because I would love for everyone to hear what you shared with me. So I'll ask you again, and we'll start with the one take home message that you want people to leave with from this conversation today.
Yes. So I want all of you listening to know that self-care, self-respect, and self-acceptance of wherever you are today is a extremely powerful launch pad for you to go wherever it is that you want to go. And this idea of self-acceptance is not about settling, and it's also not about thinking of yourself as perfect, but it really does become this vehicle and platform from which you get to do and be the big things that you want.
I love that. I love this visual of that being the launch pad and a place to start, because I think so many of us start in a place or a mindset of putting others first, of negative self-talk, of self-loathing, of not accepting who we are, where we are, what we look like, what we're doing in life. And we think that from that starting point, ideally we get to a better place, but how do we expect to get to a better place if that's where we're starting? Like, it's so backwards, right?
Exactly, exactly. I think like believing in yourself and your inevitable potential and all of your capabilities, that becomes the prerequisite for action, not the other way around. Oftentimes we get it backwards, like you were saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so back to this idea of feeling at home in your body. Can we kind of unpack what the heck that even means? Because I think, the idea of it is wonderful, but what does it actually look like to feel at home in your body and to accept and to use your words, love and respect your body as it is?
Yeah, that is such a good question. And I mean, gosh, I when I think of feeling at home in my own body, it's like this imagery of like, if I think of myself like cuddled on a couch, just kind of like cozied up in a blanket, like feeling literally at home. Maybe there's a fireplace, but to really boil it down to what this, maybe looks like in practice, it's understanding that, you're not perfect and that there are places you're trying to go, but that where you are right now is great. And it means kind of tuning into your body, being able to listen to what it's telling you versus always, demanding that your body change or do more. It's really showing this acceptance and gratitude for everything that it's doing for you each and every moment of the day that you're never even asking for it to do, let alone appreciating. And I think it's a really, really powerful concept. And again, it doesn't cut off progress. I think it becomes a motivator of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you bring up a lot in your answer there around the idea of resistance. And I would love
Mhm.
to talk about that for a little bit. Resistance and also denying ourselves of the things we want,
Yes.
which in your world I know shows up in a lot of ways. So let's talk about those two kind of concepts and see where it takes us. But let's start with resistance and what we feel resistance to, why we feel resistance to ourselves, and what happens when you are able to let go of some of that resistance.
Yeah. I mean, we feel resistance and gosh, so many things. The way, in my world, working with clients as a dietitian, I see it in the ways that people are, making themselves eat or making themselves exercise. And they find that they're always failing. They always feel like they're failing. And really, it's the system or the rules that they've set up for themselves that are just unattainable that actually are failing them, right? So it's
Mhm.
this cycle of like striving for something that is just maybe not realistic and not actually in alignment with your values. And so doing that in practice feels like this resistance, like this friction, and it's not easy and effortless. And when we talk about, mental and physical health, we need to find like that flow state when it comes to the habits and behaviors that we're putting in place to again get us where we're going.
Yeah, yes. And that brings up for me the idea of commitment and actually committing
Yes.
to yourself, which is something, and maybe this will turn into like a little mini coaching session. I'm very much struggling with commitment and feel like I'm doing everything in my life at maybe max 50%, if like that's being
Yes.
generous. And it feels really, really bad to
Yep.
have it's all, it's the visual, like a million plates spinning and just like waiting for one to kind of drop.
Yes.
But also knowing that the plates could be spinning so much more efficiently, but you like can't take a break to figure out how to make the change. You just
Yes.
know that it could be different. um so what would you say to somebody in my position who is struggling to maybe create a sense of priorities for herself, or who's struggling to really commit and do what it takes to see real change happen?
Yes, that is a really, really great question. And I think what you're describing and alluding to is like very, very common among entrepreneurs and even, just myself thinking about focus going into 2020 and not chasing all of the shiny objects. And we also encourage our clients to do the same thing, because whether we're talking about running a business or focusing on our family or focusing on our health, it always feels like there's a million infinite number of things that we could and should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it looks like going inward. I find that when I am out in the world, when I'm listening to every podcast, when I'm reading every book, when I'm scrolling through social media, that is when I start to get this feeling or notion that I need to be doing more, and I need to be doing it all, and I need to be doing it better than everyone else, which, Tallia, you're describing, like, yeah, you end up doing everything really subpar
Yes.
instead of just doing one or two things extremely well, right? So understanding where did that come from? And I think a lot of times it's expectations, right? Whether it's expectations from other people or expectations we have of ourselves based on external circumstance or external influence, right? So coming back in and really focusing on what it is that you're either doing really well naturally, or like the 80-20 rule, what is the 20% that's going to bring you 80% of your results? And again, I think this translates to business, to personal life, relationships, and to our health as well.
Yeah. 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 The idea of commitment has been super prevalent and like top of mind for me recently. And I found that a big part of the willingness to commit is also having an idea of where it is you want to end up. Like, you're not going to fully commit until you know what you're committing to and why.
Yes.
So can we talk a little bit about the importance of like having that vision and having just a clear sense of why you're doing what you're doing? And maybe this will take us into a conversation about motivation and willpower.
Totally.
So yeah, let's see where that takes us.
Totally. Yeah. So I think what you're talking about in terms of having difficulty committing because you want to know what the end game is, right? You're talking about wanting to know what the outcome is before you maybe put in the work to get to that outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And really what that friction or resistance you're experiencing there, I believe is fear and fear of failure, right? Because if we didn't feel like failure was an option, then we would commit. Right? We would commit the time, we would commit the money, we would commit the effort, whatever it is that, the outcome you're looking for requires, you would go all in. Right? Do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm correct there?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, in some ways, I think it's interesting because when I think about it in the context of like fitness and health,
Yeah.
I don't really know what failure would look like, So it's interesting to think about what is the fear actually around, or where is the hesitation? Because, and this is different for everybody, but my goals and my commitment to physical health is not tied to any goal. It's not tied to losing a certain, it's not tied to like an outcome that I could fail at or succeed in. Does that make sense?
Got it. Totally. Yeah. And that's awesome. You're like a step ahead, I think, of most people, right? Because most people are looking at their health behaviors to bring about some outcome, whether it's weight loss, confidence, all of that.
Right.
So if you're not looking to it for that, which I think is phenomenal, it gives you a really great place to start, just in terms of like getting to think about, how am I going to enjoy this journey?
Right.
Right. So I think whether or not you're looking for an outcome, regardless of that, I guess you need a strong why, which is what you were kind of alluding to, right? So like, what is your health going to be the vehicle for in your life, right? For a lot of our clients, it's, more energy, more clarity. They want to, kind of connect with their bodies through exercise, through nourishing their bodies with, great food, so that they can show up at work better, or so that they don't pass down kind of the negative body image stuff that maybe they got from their mom. Like this stuff really, really goes deep. Some people want to have more intimacy with their partner. And so when all we do is scratch the surface, when it comes to health behaviors and what we're looking for with those, we get like really shallow, not shallow, because that makes it sound, insignificant, but we get, surface answers, right? So I want to lose 15 pounds, or I want to fit into my old dress or my old jeans, but okay, but why? Like, why does that really, really matter to you? And what is this really about? And once we get that really strong why, it is so much more motivating and we feel so much more connected to whatever it is that we know we should be committed to.
So if we take it back to what we started with, the idea of self-acceptance and self-love and self-respect,
Mm-hmm.
how do you, when there's an end goal you have in mind, when there's a different way you want to be, you want to look, whatever that, metric might be, how do you come, and I don't really know how I'm going to form this question yet. I'm thinking out loud with this, but like, from what you said earlier, you have to start from a place of self-love to then be able to take action. So how do you cultivate that even when you're not where you want to be?
Yes. And that is just kind of the crux of where our clients are, right? So our clients come into Nutritional Freedom Foundations and they are very aware that their body or their health, for example, is maybe not where they want it to be. They're not satisfied with that, but they also recognize that diets in the past and the way they were exercising or the way they were caring for themselves in the past have failed them. And so they're ready to feel better and prioritize their health without, turning back to those old behaviors that or old ways of thinking that have really failed them, right?
Mhm.
So we lay this groundwork where you get the time and space to kind of look back on that history, to think about what has worked for you, what has not, to honor where you are right now. Because even if, like I was saying earlier, even if your body or your health is not where you want it to be right now, you've still got a lot going for you, right? You've got a wonderful family, you've got a great job, you're working towards your graduate degree, you can walk, you can use your hands, your stomach is digesting for you, right? Like there are all these really, really core key things that you have going for you, and these maybe these other concerns are detracting from that. So we really help our clients tune into all of the things that are going right so that we can continue to build on those.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I love this. I think when you're coming at anything in life from a place of what's going wrong, you're it's not the
You
best
stay
place to
there.
start. Yeah. Like that's not going to take you far.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so let's chat a little bit more specifically about willpower.
Yes.
What
Oh my
is
gosh.
willpower? Yeah, because I know you have, everyone needs to go look at your blog, incredible content. But yeah, let's dig into what willpower even is and maybe what we're getting wrong when we're trying to make changes in our lives.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I've got some hot takes on willpower because it is one of the things that I hear about most often when we're interviewing potential clients to come into one of our programs. So people are always saying, well, if I just had more willpower, I'm so weak, I have no self control, which is essentially just another word for willpower. And they think that it's their kind of failing or inadequate willpower that keeps them from doing or achieving whatever it is that they want for their health and for their body, when really, like, there's not a lot of compelling research out there that gives us a good understanding for willpower and how it works.
Mhm.
So there's research out there that shows that willpower is a finite resource, meaning that you use it up throughout the day. Then there's lots of research that says the exact opposite. There's research that shows that people who self-report as having the strongest and most willpower are not actually using it, which means that they're creating an environment and circumstances in which they don't really need to use their willpower. So it's a little bit confusing, and that's where I come back to forget about willpower, right? Like forget about willpower. Clearly relying on it is not getting you anywhere. Why don't
Mhm.
we focus on that kind of built environment, meaning how easy is it for you to access, healthy foods, fruits and vegetables? When you go to your office and you have a snack drawer, is it filled with candy and junk food, or is it have nourishing food that, leads to balanced blood sugar? Are you forcing yourself to go to a gym 45 minutes away when there's a beautiful walking trail right outside your house, right? So creating that built environment that decreases the resistance, to bring it back to what we talked about earlier, and then also getting away from that victim mentality of, if only I had enough willpower, I could do XYZ. No, you're not doing XYZ because you don't believe that you can, or you don't believe that it's going to be worth it, right? So it's this, in the program, I talk about it from the combination of mindset, which is like the really hard, heavy, kind of sticky work. And then also I call them like hot tips. So like, here's just the tactical boom, 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 do this and you'll be good. While we also work on the deeper mindset stuff, the limiting beliefs, all these hangups that are actually holding you back.
Yes. Have you read Willpower Doesn't Work by Benjamin Hardy?
I haven't. Maybe I
Okay.
should.
Yes, it is like 100% your language, and so aligned with everything you just shared. I think, to your point, right, there are some things that say yes, willpower, some things that say no, willpower. It's all about what your thoughts are around it and what reality you create around the idea itself.
Yes.
And the importance of environment and how much we are a result of what we're surrounded by, whether that's people or otherwise.
Yeah.
And I've noticed one of the things that I'm realizing now as I'm trying to think about how I'm committing to myself and my health. I actually just said this to a friend who I was talking through ideas with. I said, the one thing I need it to be for me is easy. It needs to be easy for me to get to it, easy for me to do it. Not to say the practice of whatever it is going to be easy, but there needs to be zero resistance or close to zero amount of resistance, so that there's no excuse left but to say, okay, I got to go. I got to do it.
Exactly. That is so true.
So where does accountability come into all of this?
It is so important and so helpful, especially if you are just having the hardest time getting started. If you've been, kind of working on improving your health for years and years and years and years with little long-term success, then maybe we need some additional accountability. And that's where working with a practitioner can lead to such a different experience than just like listening to a podcast or reading a health book or scrolling through Instagram, right? Like inspiration is amazing and really important, but inspiration without action or implementation is just spending time.
Yeah.
So, broadly there are kind of two focuses of accountability. So we have internal accountability and external accountability. And accountability is just based on like expectation, right? So you're accountable to the kind of standards that you expect of yourself, or you're accountable to the expectations or standards of other people. Now, we all respond differently to different forms of accountability. I'm someone who I am extremely accountable to myself, and I'm also very much accountable to others. Like this, we had this interview scheduled in my calendar, and I was super happy that it was in my calendar because I know I'm gonna show up, right? A lot of people in the clients that we work with, and most people in general, we see in the research is that they struggle with that internal accountability, but for other people all day. Like they're taking care of other people, showing up for other people like it's literally their job. And sometimes it is their job.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, and if someone, if you're listening to this and recognizing, oh my gosh, I think that's me. Like I show up for my kids, I show up for my doctor's appointment. I would never be, I would never turn in a report late at work to my boss. If that's you, then maybe you need this external accountability, someone to hold you to a high standard when it comes to the health habits and behaviors that would serve you well and ultimately lead to you living this life that is more in alignment with your values.
Yeah, I can totally relate. I'm like, yep, that's me. I was like so there and held accountable to others, but when it comes to myself, it's just a whole other ball game. And
Totally.
I'm doing a lot of my own work, coaching work, inner work around that to really understand why. But that brings up a question that I brought up a few minutes ago and we forgot to turn back to. So I want to revisit the question of where and how we deny ourselves of the things we want, and where that comes from, what that does to our sense of self and worth and deservedness, and how that plays into whether or not we feel at home in our body. So how do you see this come up for you in your work?
Yes. Okay. So our clients come to us, and what they so badly want, but don't have any idea of how to get to, is this ability to trust themselves
Mhm.
and to trust their body and what their body is telling them. And how do we lose that, right? So we lose that, similar to what I was saying earlier, from what we hear in the outside world, right? So people are constantly talking about their physical health and what they're doing or not doing, their successes, their struggles. There's, you know, umpteen diets and all these gurus and so many books you can read and all these accounts to follow, and there's like 100 million things that people feel like they could or should be doing with their body, and all of that external clutter is clouding the message and the communication between your body and your brain,
Mhm.
right? So we end up in this place where we're denying ourselves of what our body is telling us it wants, right? So it could be literally we're not feeding ourselves enough, that we're not nourishing our bodies with enough nutrients or enough calories, or maybe we've cut out entire food groups even though they don't necessarily harm us, and we quite like them. And usually what we see in this is this pendulum swing, right? Where maybe breakfast and lunch or the beginning of the week, we're, quote unquote, I'm doing air quotes over here, good, or we're restricting in some ways. We are holding ourselves back from the things that we love and desire. So then by the end of the day or the end of the week, on the weekend, we end up going just freaking ham. Like we feel like we have no, to bring it back, we have no willpower, no self-control. And then this shame cycle sets in, right? So again, we see this huge pendulum swing, whereas what the work we do in the program to empower our clients to really, again, tune in, to listen to their internal wisdom, to think about their health behaviors and even specific foods, if necessary, outside of the context of any diet, and really thinking about, what is my body telling me right now? You start to kind of ride somewhere in the middle, and you don't see these major swings, not only in your behaviors, but then also the emotional swings that come from that all on or all off cycle.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit more about maybe what gets in the way of us being able to trust our bodies and really feel at home?
Yeah. So again, a lot of it comes down to other people, or in this context, diets. I mean, diets quite literally can cross the signals, can cross the wires in your body in terms of your hormones and neurotransmitters and things like that, right? So when our clients are coming to us from a place of restriction or place of dieting, it does take it takes some time to like recalibrate and tune in, and for you to be able to, trust the signals that your body is giving you. And when you're able to, that is when you start to feel at home. We had a client quite recently who had been tracking her macros and calories for like years. And she finally decided through the program to put the tracker down and really try to just eat based on what her body was telling her. And she wrote in on her weekly report, she was so excited because she went to Chipotle with her husband, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, I just felt a hunger cue."
Mhm.
And or a fullness cue. So she was able to like put the lid on her Chipotle and take home leftovers. Whereas before she might have, not been in a position to really trust her body, and maybe would have ended up eating more than her body really, wanted or desired in that moment, right? So when we're able to like reconnect with our body in that way and rebuild the trust, those lines of trust, that's when we can start to really, really feel at home. Diets are really set up to make us feel like you can't trust your body. Your body, wants all these terrible things for you, but that's really not it at all. Like we are in sync and working together with our body for like not only to survive, but to, hopefully thrive.
Yeah, and I love that you said that because this applies to so many parts of life when
Yes.
when it comes to thinking that somebody else knows better than you when it comes to what you need.
Yes.
Whether it's prescribing to a diet, a certain lifestyle, a certain way of being in business, a certain way of whatever it is, I think we're very quick to think that somebody else knows better than we do. And one of my biggest practices, I just feel like sharing this because it might be it feels like it's relevant, but is to actually visualize myself like visiting my heart, visiting myself in my heart space and
Mm,
asking her what I need. Because I think, to your point, it's really hard for us to trust that we know. So to
yes.
almost separate your mind self from your heart self and to visit your heart self and say, okay, Talia, like here I am, like let's talk. Like, what do you need? Tell me what